Facebook, YouTube. Hello, welcome to the Plutonium podcast. We're here live. My name's Rue. I'm here to bring the ugly truth to you. So it's been a few weeks, so pardon me on the lack of uploading. I've been, got some excuses like everybody else, but here I am. And tonight I just wanted to be a little more clear about kind of what this podcast is about, because I came across a guy this weekend when I was loading up some furniture in my truck, and I got Plutonium podcast on the back of my truck, and it's actually a pretty cool truck. It's a 2001 F350, and it's got the iconic 7.3 motor in there, but it's basically rhino lined or bed lined. The entire outside has bed liner on it, and it's black with a lift and black rims, big tires, and all that. So it's a pretty clean truck. And he's like, "Oh, nice truck. I got a minivan and and all that." And he saw the sticker and he's like, "Oh, Plutonium podcast. What's that about?" And I'm just kind of like, well, I haven't really figured it out yet. But more or less, in a nutshell, it's kind of like a synthesis of my thoughts, or the refining of my thoughts and my thesis on life, if you will, because I feel like it's important for us to analyze ourselves and refine our thoughts and our minds, because it's the most valuable piece of technology that we have. It's the most valuable tool that we have as far as our senses go. The mind processes everything, and it's kind of like our sixth sense that you never hear about, because everyone thinks, oh, the sixth sense is pseudo science and fairy dust and unicorn farts and all that. But the sixth sense is very valuable, and without engaging that sixth sense of the mind and attention and the capacities that we have innately within us to grow and expand our wisdom, our gnosis, our knowledge, which is tested over time, becomes wisdom, which is the fermentation of knowledge, is gnosis. It's the the experience that you have becomes your wisdom. So that's kind of what this podcast is about. To anyone that's curious, it's a questioning podcast. It's a hopefully a podcast of thought, and hopefully I can bring some value to you, because I've been told that I should write a book, and I know that I have some valuable things to say, and it is very obvious to me that people do need teachers, and in every sphere of life. And I don't know if I'm the one to teach others how to think, because I've made some very poor choices in my own life, and have made mistakes, but also I feel that I do have a somewhat benevolent bend of mind, if you will, that I do have very good intentions. But then the old saying is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So, Stephen, I didn't say hi, howdy. Should have invited you onto the camera. That would have been funny. Could have done a dual stream there, but you wouldn't have showed up on the YouTube stream. But I am live on 2 platforms right now, and I did have some ideas written down on my phone about what I wanted to discuss tonight specifically. And now I'm pulling up kind of a brain fart because, that's what happens when you don't engage that sixth sense, this sense of thought, perception, ideas, attention. It's literally the most valuable thing that we can do. And more or less, it was basically in the vein of, what the fuck is going on in the world. And we've been in a, if you pay attention to the mainstream, which is something that actually I'm not going to advocate anymore because it's impossible to pay attention to all the drama going on in the world. That's why it's best to focus on our inner drama, on our inner dialogues, and what's going on within, because I believe that is also a manifestation of what we perceive in the outer world. We can't control what goes on in the outer world, but we can control how we react to the outer world. And that's a very quintessential skill to have in life. And they say a lot of things, but the good ones do say that life is, 90% is how you react to it, and 10% is what happens to you. I also want to add that I've been on a little fast today, and this is coffee right here, and I haven't had any solid foods, which is a very powerful health technique if you haven't learned that. So I feel a little bit more lucid, but I am taking some caffeine in, and I've had caffeine today, which kind of brings me on to my next topic, which is 99% of Americans, maybe not 99%, but I would say at least 90% of the workforce is high on caffeine 24/7. Why do I say 24/7? Because if you're drinking more than a 12-ounce serving, or you're basically 30 micrograms of caffeine, which you get in a 12-ounce serving of coffee, which is what most people take. It takes 12 hours. It has a half-life of 12 hours. So, or I shouldn't say that. It has a half-life of 6 hours. So it takes 12 hours to fully get out of your system, depending on what your tolerance is. But if you drink more than your one serving a day, then you're probably not detoxed until sometime the next day, which sometime the next day people wake up, they're already drinking more coffee. So what I'm saying is that our working population is a neurotic population. I'm still acclimating to society and the outside world and the population. It's going to be a never-ending thing, and should I acclimate to it is the question. Should I become a normal person? Some people like being normal, and some people don't want to rock the boat, and some people want to keep their head down and stick their head in the proverbial hole in the sand. And that's not the type of person I am. So I don't think I should acclimate to society, because society is extremely sick. And the evidence for that is unrefutable at this point. When you look at the criminal justice system and how they tend to give pedophiles PR bond and drug dealers life sentences, that in and of itself right there should tell you everything you need to know. But also most of the time some evidence comes out later along down the line that these people that we call leaders, i.e. politicians and congressmen and senators and presidents, evidence will come out later that data evidence, whatever you want to call it, that they've lied to you and that they've deceived and are of questionable character, but nothing ever happens to them. So that is a sign of a sick society. when you have people that aren't held accountable for their actions, whereas others are held hyper accountable for their action or even non-action. I mean, it's crazy. You literally can be and will be destroyed if you choose to live sovereign lifestyle where you're not paying taxes, you're not connected to the power grid. If you choose to or try to unplug from the system, then you're going to be ostracized. And that is becoming a more and more prominent feature of our society here in the West. So much so that if you don't partake in a pharmaceutical medical treatment, that you are in a different tier of society, that you are a lesser person with lesser rights and lesser privileges. And that's not fair. Is it ever going to change? I don't know. The question is how much is the average person willing to put up with? And do they mind being in a segregated society? And the answer is yes. Yes, we've been in this society has been segregated for ever since society has existed. You have the rulers and you have the ruled, the subjugators and the subject. It's apparent. But the reason why I say that society will accept this is because we've always accepted this, but most prominently here in the United States, which we are a leader in many of the very most atrocious things in the world, number one being a prison population. And that's something that I have a lot of experience with, my past. And felonious activity will bar you from most of the fruits of society, which are a well-paying job that requires minimal amount of skill and a minimal amount of effort. So we have a lot of people that are just pushing buttons and doing what they're told by a higher power and a higher authority, someone in a higher position than them. It's usually the way society works. That's why since birth, we've been cultivating a acquiescence to authority. It's what we're taught in school, and it starts with, can I go to the bathroom? Asking for permission to relieve your bodily function while you're in a situation or setting, if you will, to be used. So you're in classroom or you're in the job, in the office, at the job, and you're being trained to succeed your will to authority. So it's always been this way since we're little kids. You take the most precious years of our lives and we are put into the system. So what do? You send your kids off to school from kindergarten to 12. So a whole 12 years of your life, or more actually, 14, 15 years of your life, you're in some kind of daycare / authoritarian system. And it keeps getting progressively, and that's what the progression and the progressives are doing, is they're imbibing our youth with authoritarianism. They're indoctrinating them, or they're baptizing them in the church of authoritarianism. And this authoritarianism is unilateral. It doesn't matter what aspect of the system you're talking about, it's all authoritarianism. It's always yield to the higher authority. And my argument is that, like Nietzsche said, God is dead. We've killed God. So God is ultimately the highest authority, but that concept, that idea of what God is, has been replaced with so many things here in the West, especially mostly the money and the objects and the senses. So we've replaced God with an object called money, a thing that bankers make, a fiat, a made thing. Fiat is Latin for made. And the material things that you can get with that money, or the sensory gratifications that you can fulfill with that money. So basically, money has become the medium through which we can do anything and everything nearly under the sun. But we all know that money doesn't buy the best things in life, which are family. You can't buy a family. I guess you could, but this is all really speculative philosophical topics here. But that's another thing with this podcast. I like to cover philosophical and theoretical and psychological things. This is all in the same vein, if you ask me. Philosophy and politics does tie into that, because politics is the philosophy of the land, right? All right. I don't know. It has something to do with the way we govern our society, and that's a philosophical thing, which is governance and the right to rule, the right to authority, and all that. So these are all things that are in the same vein, if you ask me. And it's every single field that we have in the West is based off of this authority of who's got the most experience. And it's become so bad that it's dogma at this point, because you're not allowed to question anything openly without getting the emotional rancor of 7 billion Karens and 7 billion Chads that are attacking you because they're right. Because this has been instilled into the population that they have a right not to be offended. They have a right to not feel any kind of mental agitation. And that's that's really one of the cruxes. That's really the root of many of the problems that we have today, is that people aren't willing to do any kind of mental gymnastics. They're not willing to be uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. It's become so bad that you can't even have a real conversation with anyone anymore, because you're afraid to offend someone or offend someone's relative. It's like, oh, you can't talk about gays because somebody might know someone that's gay, or you can't talk about politics because everybody's so offended, and everything is under the sun is politics now. You don't want to offend anybody, and it's becoming so profoundly stagnant that you can see it in our culture and in our society. We've made no social progress in the past 100 years, if you ask me. What is social progress? I'm talking about the quality of life improving. For the math, and this is what most of the social justice warriors are crying for, is a better quality of life, right? And the majority of people have a very low quality of life, but they don't realize, they think that they're free and they're living this extravagant lifestyle, which here in the West we are, because we don't have to really struggle much for our basic necessities are all handed to us from birth. It's something that we're used to is food and water and shelter and clothing and healthcare and all these things that we were born with. We don't know the struggle that it took to acquire those things. Especially here in America, we had to basically wipe out the entire indigenous population just to get that. And here's a cue for your social justice warriors. The only reason why I ever bring this up is because I did grow up on an Indian reservation and I was the minority. And there was racism there because me being a white man, white boy at the time, supposedly I'm responsible for the gentrification of their peoples because of the color of my skin. Little do they know, or maybe they do now, that Irish and white, a lot of, especially the Irish, called them white Negroes, they were indentured servants. So was it my ancestors coming out here and taking their land and killing them and all that? Odds are no. Did we play a part in it? Yes, but it was the system that was installed. This system that was there was known as colonialism, and that's what they did. It's just colonialism. So getting into the philosophical notion of social progress, I haven't seen much. I see social degeneration when you can't even have an open discussion about anything anymore without someone getting offended. There's no real debate in the world, and it's getting to the point of psychosis. It's literally psychosis at this point, and insanity, because we are stuck in a positive feedback loop of continuing to repeat the sins of our fathers, the sins of our fathers, and it's really hard to stay positive these days. And that's another thing that I want to use this podcast for is positive influence. What yeah, I should have opened with this, but what am I? I'm a quantum influencer, because I'm not even a nano or a micro, because they say, I think my fiance for this, it's micro is like when you have like 1,000 or more, right? Or a nano is when you have 1,000 or more, and then micro is like what, 10,000 to 100,000 or something. So I'm not even on that level. I'm a quantum influencer. I don't want to influence people in the right way, but it's always very difficult for me to gather my thoughts. And that's what I was saying. This is a synthesis of my thoughts. So it's probably not very interesting for most people. But as I continue this narrative of questioning what society is and questioning my place and our role in history, his story, I'm trying to change to our story. When we go back in our story, it's not going to be his story anymore, because when it's our story, we're going to know what the truth is, because we're not going to let history get erased again. Hopefully. But it is very hard to stay positive and upbeat when you look at what the TV shows us and what the phone shows us and what the arbiters of truth, mainstream media, MSM, are telling you what to think and care about, where your emotional energy, your emotional currency is going to be directed. That's what they do. They control the airwaves. That's Saturnian. That is the radio waves, the telecommunication, the fifth generation of telecommunications we're in now. We're fourth, going into fifth. So it's very difficult to be coherent these days for me, especially since I've been battling addiction since I've basically got out of the halfway house, and that's not easy. it's not easy because once you step back into it, it's so hard to get out of it. And that's another thing that I advocate here is sobriety and want to say chastity, because I do believe in very old school ideologies here, which are monogamy and heterosexuals making babies, growing the human population. Because contrary to popular belief, I'd hate to break people's bubbles here. The planet may be looking overpopulated with people, but that's going to change very quickly if the supply chain does actually stay broken like it is, because half the world's population is propped up by chemical fertilizers, and population growth is actually on a decline right now because I don't have 2.5 kids. Am I ever going to have 2.5 kids? So if you are not having 2.5 kids, you're not replacing yourself, which is unfortunate, and I might be lucky that genetics might go on because my sister has 5 kids and my brother has 2 right now, but that's still not, those aren't mine. It's just my family's line. And my sister's just my half sister. So again, popularity to contrary belief, actually fertility is going way, way, way down, and the people aren't being replaced. So there is a fertility crisis that nobody's talking about. There's many things that are more important than what we're told. But I think the most important thing we can do is change our lifestyles, and stepping out of the system step by step is a long process, but you can start by quit buying bottled water. It's number one. It's literally number one is quit making more trash than you need to. And so many people are unaware of it. I mean, I really can't say anything because, again, I'm driving a 1-ton diesel truck. I mean, what's my carbon footprint? Yeah, but I got to go make money somehow. And I like having a truck that I can make money with if I so chose to and haul equipment and materials here and there and help people move and give people rides and such. Gotta have a return on investment. But it's a pivotal time for us right now. And if you didn't wake up in 2020, I don't know what to say. There's not much hope for you. But in that same vein, there's a good chance that if you're watching this, you're probably already on the right track, according to me. That's my opinion. But things are only going to get crazier and crazier until there's a critical mass of people that are awakened to at least a modicum of the truth, very smallest amount of truth that will snap them over to the other side of the pendulum and wake them up. But this podcast is to let you know that there is something happening and you're not crazy. There is something going on in our nation and in the world. It's unexplainable. We can't ascertain the end of it because we're in it and we can't see what the end result is. But I err on the side of it is good because it is necessary and is because it is what is happening. So we can't say everything that we see in the news and the media is bad. It looks bad. It sounds bad. My best advice is just focus on what you can do. Be that change. Put a smile on. Yes, it's difficult to remain optimistic when you look out into the wild and you see all the crazy shit happening. And when I say look out into the wild, just turn on your TV, just drive downtown, go out on a night, on your average night at your average bar, listen to people. You don't need to be told what's right and wrong. Inherently, we know what's right and wrong. It ties in with natural law. It's just the saddest thing about the narratives that we are given. None of them ever make any sense about any of the things that have moved our society forward. When I say our society, I'm talking about the United States of America, which even that term right there is can't even call it united. We're not united. But you go back to the Declaration of Independence and how we were started on a violent revolution. It's just so crazy to think about. We really don't know the truth about anything anymore. And you can't get the truth because the people that are supposedly in charge of giving us the truth are never sworn in or held accountable for what they said or say or are saying or will say. So where do we get the truth? Well, hopefully you do your own research and you utilize people like myself that are feet on the ground, see and experience their own objective reality. Because you can't trust people that are bought and paid for by the corporate media and by the corporations. This message was brought to you by BioNTech, Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, AstraZeneca, Vax, Johnson Johnson. This, remember, get vaccinated. You just gotta shake your head. It's literally they tell you this is fucking newscast is sponsored by Pfizer. You don't think that's unbiased information? You don't think any of the information that you have pouring at you 24/7 is unbiased? You don't think people have anything to gain from lying to you? I mean, it just goes back to the whole Santa Claus fairy tale. It's all a fairy tale, folks. Wake up. I barely have enough time to do this fucking podcast. I do have the time, but it's just difficult for me to come on here and say anything positive because there's so much shit going on in the world right now. But that's where you do got to find those little things to be grateful for because we have first world problems here. So there's plenty to be grateful for. I just wish I could have more of an impact on the world, which means, again, I need to have more impact in my own life. Take responsibility for the power and time that I do have, the life that I do have, the energy that I do have within me. That's all anyone can really do. Which is why I try my best not to go into the narratives that everybody else is repeating and talking about. Be a sovereign individual with my own ideas, my own content, my own value. All the information's out there for anyone right now. It's not going to be out there forever, though. You look at the way things are being censored right now, and does it not make you scratch your head? There's a lot of things to look forward to, though. And I look forward to the coming days to see how crazy this shit gets and to see what really happens. So many people have made so many predictions. I'm done making predictions, though. Fuck that. Let this shit unfold on its own. Quit bugging it. Quit messing with it. Quit making propositions and bets on what's going to happen. Just sit back and enjoy the show. We don't know which way this is going. I thought I was going to have a more coherent and organized train of thought tonight, but it doesn't sound like it. I do know I am a warrior, though, for just even having the balls to come on here and say anything contrary to the popular belief, contrary to the official narrative. It's not easy being told you're crazy and you're a conspiracy theorist. It's not easy being an outcast, but that's what we are. I'd like to say this is a podcast for all the people that have been told they're crazy and they're weird and they are different. You're not crazy, you're not weird, you're not different. You just need to find your tribe. And we're in the best tribe. Right? Right. We gotta be, because we're on the side of truth and justice and love and goodness and light. But it's all that emerges from the darkness, because this is what the darkness has created. It's created this group of people seeking the truth and seeking justice and seeking righteousness and seeking goodness and seeking love, but not seeking love, manifesting love, being truth, being goodness. That really is human nature. But I argue that most of us are stuck in an animal psychology, an animistic psychology, where all we're worried about is our food and our water and our shelter and staying comfortable as long as we can. It's not going to work forever. We're going to have to start thinking outside of that little tiny box that we're put into, that black box that you see everywhere, but nobody really understands. Well, I reckon that's all I got for tonight. I know it wasn't that exciting or anything, but hell, I enjoyed it. This is my little slice of internet territory over here. It's very small, but welcome. If you got any questions or comments or concerns, leave it in the comments. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, share, don't share, unsubscribe, all the things. I don't care. I love you regardless. My heart is open to you, but I will crush you if you step wrong. Thank you. Good night, everyone.